Stop wasting your morning on supplements that promise miracles, because the single most powerful thing you can do for your aging body costs you absolutely nothing, requires zero prescriptions, and can start working inside your cells within the next 30 minutes. I'm talking about walking. Plain, ordinary, put one foot in front of the other walking. And before you click away thinking you've heard this before, let me tell you something that will genuinely shock you. Most doctors, and I say this as someone who has practiced medicine for decades, are wildly underselling what this simple act does to your body at the cellular level. What's happening inside your arteries, your brain tissue, your immune system, and even your mitochondria when you walk every single day is nothing short of extraordinary. And after age 60, it becomes arguably the most important intervention you will ever make. And in today's video, I'm going to count down the 6 most powerful things that happen to your body when you walk every day, ranked from remarkable all the way up to what I consider genuinely life-changing. And I'll tell you right now, number 1 on this list is something that even most cardiologists aren't communicating clearly to their patients over 65. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why it matters so deeply and what you can do starting today to activate it. A 2023 landmark study published by researchers and analyzed at Harvard Medical School followed over 78,000 adults, and what they found was staggering. Walking just under 10,000 steps per day was associated with a 51% lower risk of dying from cardiovascular disease and a 30% reduction in the risk of developing dementia. But here's what they don't tell you in the headlines, and this is the part I want you to really absorb. It wasn't just the number of steps that mattered, it was the consistency. The people who walked every single day, even shorter distances, outperformed those who walked more but sporadically. Your body rewards routine. It responds to daily chemical signals. And after the age of 60, that daily signal becomes the difference between a body that ages with you and one that silently deteriorates against you. The full references to this study and all the others I'll mention today are linked in the description below, and I encourage you to look them up yourself. Now, before we dive into the full countdown, I want to ask you something. And I genuinely read every single comment on this channel because your stories matter to me. I want to know, how old are you right now? And what's been the biggest physical challenge stopping you from walking more? Drop it in the comments below. Tell me your age, your city if you're comfortable, and what's been getting in your way. You would be amazed at how many people in their 70s and 80s who watch this channel have told me that a single comment from a stranger their age completely changed their mindset. So leave yours. It might change someone else's life today. Now, let's count down, starting at number 6. Number 6, and this one sets the foundation for everything else, is what walking does to your blood sugar within the first 30 minutes of moving. Most people think blood sugar control is only a concern for diabetics, but here is the reality. After the age of 60, nearly every human body on this planet starts losing its sensitivity to insulin. Insulin is the hormone that acts like a key, unlocking your cells so that glucose, your blood sugar, can enter and be used for energy. Think of it like a delivery truck that needs a working loading dock to unload its cargo. As we age, those docks become rusty. The medical term for this is insulin resistance, and it quietly accelerates after 65, driving up silent inflammation, storing fat around your organs, and literally starving your brain cells of the fuel they desperately need. A study conducted at the Joslin Diabetes Center, affiliated with Harvard Medical School, found that even a single 15-minute walk after a meal can reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes by up to 22%. That is not a small number. That is the equivalent of a mild glucose-lowering medication, and it comes with 0 side effects. For aging bodies specifically, this matters even more because of something called glycation. When excess sugar floats around in your bloodstream, it attaches to proteins in your blood vessels and literally makes them stiff and brittle, like turning a flexible garden hose into a rigid pipe made of glass. Walking clears that excess sugar from your blood before it can do that damage. Here's the practical advice, and this is something you can implement tonight. Take your walk within 30 minutes of eating a meal, particularly dinner, which is when blood sugar spikes tend to be highest in older adults. Even a 10-minute stroll around the block counts. And if you pair this with drinking a small glass of water before you walk, your body will shuttle that glucose out of your bloodstream even more efficiently. The synergy between hydration and movement at this metabolic stage is something almost nobody talks about, but your kidneys and your pancreas will absolutely thank you for it. Now here's a teaser. Number 2 on this list deals with something inside your cells that most people have never even heard of. But after age 70, it may be the single most important factor in how fast you age. Keep watching. Number 5 is what daily walking does to your joints, and specifically, why it's the exact opposite of what most people fear. I hear it constantly. Doctor, I don't walk because my knees hurt, or I was told I have arthritis and that walking will make it worse. And I understand why people believe that. It sounds logical. If your knees are painful, surely pounding them on the pavement will grind them down faster, right? But the science says the exact opposite is true. Cartilage, the cushioning tissue inside your knees and hips, does not have its own blood supply. It has to absorb nutrients like a sponge. And the only way it gets squeezed, the only way those nutrients get pushed into the cartilage, is through movement. A landmark study from researchers at Stanford University School of Medicine followed more than 2,600 adults with knee osteoarthritis and found that those who walked regularly had significantly less cartilage loss over 4 years compared to those who were sedentary, even after controlling for body weight. Walking actually feeds your cartilage. Think about that for a second. Your joints are not wearing out from walking. They're starving without it. Now, for people over 65, there's another layer to this that's critically important, and it involves a condition called sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle mass that happens naturally with age. After 75, the average person loses muscle at a rate of about 1.5% per year. And the muscles that support your knees and hips, the quadriceps, the hamstrings, the glutes, are often the first to go. When those supporting muscles weaken, your joints have to absorb shocks they were never designed to handle alone. Walking, even at a gentle pace, activates all those muscle groups. Think of those muscles as a suspension system for your body. Without them, every step sends a jarring signal straight to the bone. To prepare for walking with joint discomfort, and I want to be very practical here, start on softer surfaces, grass, packed dirt, or a rubberized track. Wear supportive shoes with cushioned soles, not old, worn-out sneakers that have lost their structure. And here's the synergy tip that most people completely miss. Take your walk about 45 minutes after a meal that contains omega-3 fatty acids. Think fatty fish like salmon, walnuts, or ground flaxseed, because omega-3s are naturally anti-inflammatory, and they circulate through your bloodstream at peak concentration during that window. Walking, while those compounds are active in your body, gives your joints a layer of chemical protection that you simply cannot get from walking on an empty stomach. Number 4 is something that might genuinely shock you, because it has to do with your immune system and what walking does to your body's ability to fight infection, cancer, and chronic disease. Here's a fact that most people over 65 deserve to know, but rarely hear stated plainly. Your immune system ages. The process even has a name, immunosenescence, which is just a fancy medical term for an immune system that has gradually lost its edge. After 70, your body produces fewer T cells, which are the elite soldiers of your immune defense. Natural killer cells, the ones that patrol your body looking for cancerous or virus-infected cells, become slower and less aggressive. And inflammation, which should be a short-term defensive response, starts burning low and chronic instead, like an ember that never quite goes out. Researchers at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine call this inflammaging, and it is one of the primary drivers behind heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers in older adults. A remarkable study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine found that people who walked briskly for 30 to 45 minutes, 5 days a week, had 43% fewer days of illness from upper respiratory infections compared to sedentary adults of the same age. But what made the researchers even more excited was what they found in the blood. Walking consistently elevated the circulation of immune cells, particularly natural killer cells, by up to 50% for several hours after each walk. Think of it like calling the army out of the barracks. Those cells stay sluggish when you're sedentary. Movement shakes them loose and sends them on patrol. For seniors specifically, the ideal walking intensity for immune benefit is what I call a conversation pace. Brisk enough that you feel slightly warmer than usual and your breathing is a bit deeper, but you can still hold a conversation without gasping. That's the sweet spot. Too slow and the immune signal is minimal. Too fast and you risk elevating cortisol, which can actually suppress immune function temporarily. Aim for 30 to 40 minutes at that conversation pace. And the best synergy pairing for immune support, get that walk in morning sunlight before 10 a.m., when ultraviolet exposure helps your skin produce vitamin D, one of the most powerful immune modulators your body makes naturally. You're not just walking, you're bathing your cells in immune-activating sunlight. Now, before we get to the top 3, I want to take a quick moment to say, if this information is helping you, and I genuinely hope it is, please consider subscribing to this channel and hitting that like button. I post content specifically for people in the 60-plus age group. Content that I wish more doctors were sharing openly and honestly, and your support is what makes it possible to keep creating it. And if you haven't already, drop your age and your biggest walking challenge in the comments. I read them all. Your story might be the one that inspires someone else to take that first step today. Now let's talk about number 3. Number 3 is what walking does to your brain, and I don't mean in a vague, feel-good kind of way. I mean structurally, physically, measurably. Let me tell you about Dorothy, 72 years old, from Savannah, Georgia. Dorothy came to my attention through a patient referral. She'd been experiencing what she called brain fog, the kind where you walk into a room and completely forget why you came, where you lose words mid-sentence, where reading a book feels like pushing through mud. Her doctor had run all the standard tests, and everything came back, quote, normal for her age. Normal. As if losing your sharpness is something to simply accept. Dorothy started walking 25 minutes every morning at 7 a.m. through her neighborhood. Within 8 weeks, she told me she was sleeping better, thinking faster, and had finished 2 novels for the first time in years. What happened inside her brain during those 8 weeks was not magic. It was measurable biology. A landmark study from researchers affiliated with the Cleveland Clinic found that regular aerobic walking increased the size of the hippocampus, the brain region responsible for memory and learning, by approximately 2% in older adults. That may sound small, but consider this. The hippocampus naturally shrinks with age at a rate of about 1% to 2% per year after age 60. Walking didn't just slow that loss, it reversed it. It actually grew new brain tissue. The mechanism behind this involves a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is produced during aerobic exercise. Think of BDNF like fertilizer for your brain cells. It encourages existing neurons to branch and connect more richly, and it supports the growth of entirely new neurons in the hippocampus, a process called neurogenesis that scientists once thought was impossible in adult brains. After age 65, your brain's white matter, the communication highways between different brain regions, also begins to degrade. Regular walking has been shown in MRI studies at Johns Hopkins to preserve white matter integrity and reduce the appearance of what radiologists call white matter lesions, which are essentially small scars from reduced blood flow that accumulate silently and contribute to cognitive decline. The practical recommendation is this: walk in environments that engage your senses. Through a park, along a tree-lined street, somewhere with variation and natural sounds. Studies from researchers at Stanford have shown that nature walks produce significantly higher BDNF and greater cognitive restoration than urban walks along busy roads. Your brain benefits from novelty and beauty. Give it both. Don't just walk on a treadmill staring at a wall. Walk where your mind can wander, because that mental engagement amplifies the physical benefit. Number 2, and this is the one I teased at the very beginning, the one that I believe most doctors are still not talking about enough: what walking every day does to your mitochondria. Mitochondria are the tiny energy-generating engines inside almost every cell in your body. You probably learned about them in high school biology, the powerhouse of the cell. But what nobody told you is that after age 60, your mitochondria are dying. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but steadily, silently, and with enormous consequences. The mitochondria in your muscle cells, your heart cells, and your brain cells become fewer in number, less efficient, and more prone to generating something called reactive oxygen species. Essentially, toxic exhaust fumes that damage surrounding tissues. The medical community now believes that mitochondrial decline is one of the root causes of nearly every chronic disease associated with aging, from Parkinson's to heart failure to cancer. Here is what is extraordinary about walking. It is one of the most powerful stimulants of mitochondrial biogenesis, the creation of brand new mitochondria ever studied in human beings. Researchers at the Mayo Clinic published findings showing that consistent aerobic exercise, even at moderate intensity, triggered mitochondrial regeneration in skeletal muscle cells of adults over 65, at a rate comparable to the mitochondrial health of adults decades younger. Let that sink in. Walking can make the energy factories inside your cells look and function like they did when you were 40. The key signal that triggers new mitochondria is a protein called PGC1 alpha, which is activated during sustained, rhythmic, low to moderate intensity movement. Exactly the kind of movement walking produces. Unlike high-intensity exercise, which can actually overwhelm older mitochondria and cause cellular stress, walking sits perfectly within the activation zone for PGC1 alpha, without tipping into damaged territory. The practical insight here? You do not need to walk fast to get this benefit. You need to walk consistently for at least 20 to 30 continuous minutes, because PGC1 alpha activation tends to occur after the first 15 minutes of sustained movement. Think of the first 10 to 15 minutes as warming up the engine, and the remaining time as the actual mitochondrial workout. The synergy pairing for this benefit is incredibly powerful, and almost nobody knows this. A small serving of dark berries, blueberries, blackberries, or cherries, taken about 30 minutes before your walk, provides pterostilbene and resveratrol, polyphenols that have been shown in studies at Cornell University to directly activate the same PGC1 alpha pathway as exercise, essentially doubling the mitochondrial signal. A small handful of blueberries before your morning walk. That's it. That combination is more powerful than any supplement I have ever recommended. And now, the number one thing that happens when you walk every day. The one I promised would surprise you. The one that even most cardiologists aren't fully communicating to their patients. Number one, what walking does to your vascular endothelium, the inner lining of your arteries, and why this single effect may determine whether you live the next decade independently or not. Let me introduce you to Harold, 78 years old, from Portland, Oregon. Harold had 2 stents placed in his coronary arteries at age 71 and had been told to, quote, take it easy ever since. He moved slowly, took the elevator, and had largely stopped socializing because fatigue overwhelmed him. When Harold was referred to a cardiac rehabilitation program that centered on daily walking, his cardiologist was cautiously optimistic. 18 months later, Harold's resting blood pressure had dropped from 148/92 to 122/78 without any medication changes. His 6-minute walk test, a clinical measure of cardiovascular fitness, had improved by 34%. And Harold told me the most important change. Quote, I feel like I got 7 years back. What happened to Harold was happening at the level of his arterial walls. The endothelium, that single-cell thick lining inside every artery in your body, is not just a passive pipe. It is a living organ. It secretes a molecule called nitric oxide, which signals the surrounding muscle in the artery wall to relax, allowing the vessel to dilate and blood to flow freely. After age 60, endothelial cells begin producing less nitric oxide. The arteries become stiffer. Blood pressure rises. The heart has to work harder to push blood through narrower, less flexible vessels. Over time, this elevated mechanical stress damages the arterial wall, triggering inflammation, plaque formation, and ultimately the conditions that lead to heart attack and stroke. A pivotal study from researchers at the Mayo Clinic found that postmenopausal women who walked 30 minutes a day for 3 months showed a 68% improvement in flow-mediated dilation. That is a measure of how well your arteries open in response to increased blood flow. That is a measure of endothelial function, of how well your arteries are working. And it improved by 68% from walking alone. A separate study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association followed nearly 5,000 adults over 70 and found that those who walked daily had a 35% lower risk of a first cardiovascular event compared to sedentary adults, even after adjusting for cholesterol levels, smoking history, and blood pressure medication. For people over 75, your endothelium becomes particularly vulnerable because of a process called oxidative stress, essentially the rusting of your vascular system from within. Every step you take sends a surge of blood through your vessels, and that mechanical force, called shear stress, is the single most potent stimulus for nitric oxide production that we know of. Not supplements, not any medication. The physical force of blood moving through your arteries, generated by your legs moving, tells your endothelial cells to produce more nitric oxide and to replicate healthier cells to replace damaged ones. Walking is literally renovating the inside of your arteries with every step you take. The optimal timing for vascular benefit is walking in the morning, when cortisol is naturally higher and vascular tone tends to be tighter. Morning walks have been shown to reduce arterial stiffness by 15 to 20% more than evening walks in adults over 65, according to research published in the Journal of Hypertension. The best synergy pairing for your endothelium: beet juice or foods high in dietary nitrates, leafy greens like arugula or spinach, consumed 2 to 3 hours before your morning walk. Your gut bacteria convert those nitrates into nitric oxide precursors, and when you begin walking and shear stress kicks in, those precursors are already circulating, amplifying the vascular signal significantly. Some studies suggest this combination can improve endothelial function by up to twice the amount of walking alone. A glass of water, a handful of arugula with your breakfast, and a 30-minute morning walk. That is a cardiovascular intervention that no pill on this earth can replicate. So let me bring this all together, because I think you deserve to hear this said plainly, and without the hedging that so much medical communication hides behind. You are not too old. Whatever age you are right now, whether you're 62 or 72 or 82, your body is still capable of change. It is still capable of generating new brain cells, new mitochondria, new endothelial cells, and stronger muscles. The science does not say this works if you start before 50. The science says it works, full stop. The tragedy is not aging. The tragedy is being told by the world around you that slowing down is the inevitable and appropriate response to getting older, when the evidence says that the very act of daily walking can restore biological function across nearly every system in your body. Independence is not a gift of genetics. It is an outcome of daily decisions. The person who walks every morning at 68 is building the physical infrastructure that will let them live in their own home at 85, play with their grandchildren at 78, and wake up every day with energy rather than dread. This is not about fitness. It is about freedom, and it is available to you right now, today, in the clothes you are already wearing. If this video helped you, please subscribe to this channel and share it with someone you love who is over 60. And I want to ask you one final question in the comments. And again, I read every single one. What is one place you love to walk? Or one place you'd like to walk again? Tell me, because sometimes the best medicine starts with remembering what you're walking toward. Drop your comment below, your age, your city, and the one place that makes you want to move. I'll see you in the next video.